Welcome back to the book club, Can't Hurt Me, by David Goggins. The childhood of Arthur David Goggins is completely different from other children in America. He went through a lot of difficulties. Despite these difficulties, today he is part of the only African-American SEALs in the United States, which is also considered to be the world's top-level fighting force and a prolific ultra-runner. In this audiobook, we will share with you the secret of his success in David Goggins' book, Can't Hurt Me. Today is difficult, tomorrow will be harder, but the day after tomorrow, everything will be fine. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of good health and commitment, let's take you back to David's childhood, where his journey of transformation begins. David was born in New York in the 1975, but his life was not at all happy like ordinary children living in New York. At the young age when children should be playing and reading, David's father forced him to work. His father, David Goggins, was the owner of a roller disco ring, where only his family was named after the employee. All the work was done by David, his mother, and his 3 elder brothers. 8-year-old David was assigned by his father to clean shoes. Her mother worked as a cook. When work was over after midnight, his mother would put David to sleep in the office of the disco. He could not sleep in the noise of loud songs playing in the disco. Working at night and not being able to sleep properly, Goggins fell asleep during his classes, which was also harming his studies. But despite all this, the limit used to be when his father used to beat his mother on small things. Whenever David tried to come in between and save his mother from being beaten up, his father also beat him very badly. On one occasion, David's father beat his mother because she had gone to the hospital with her son, treatment for his ear infection. These actions of David's father clearly showed that he did not care about his family at all. But finally, David's mother decided that she would run away with 8-year-old David. One day, she lured her husband and took permission to leave the house, and then, with the help of her neighbor, ran away with David. They both left the trainee's house and started their new life in a small town in Brazil, Indiana. David and his mother finally got their freedom, but there was a bitterness in this freedom too. Even after so much torture, David's elder brother had refused to run away with them. Apart from this, David also did not understand what price he would have to pay for this freedom. Could this change for the better? Taking care of your mental health is the right self-love. David and his mother had chosen to leave home and become independent, but this did not mean that David's childhood would improve or that his life would be easier. Soon the taste of freedom vanished from the mouths of both the mother and son, and they had to face the tough situation of this world on their own. Short of money, David and his mother had to live in a block of public housing, paying $7 a month in rent. Even David's father refused to help him. He would send them only that much money so that they could get 2 square meals. They were very poor. Their monthly expenses were funded by money from David's mother's part-time job and a $130 monthly welfare check. Poverty was not the only challenge. At a young age, he began to see the results of what he had endured. By the time he reached 3rd grade, David's hair had started to fall out. Its color was beginning to fade. He was also suffering from mental illness. After growing up a little, David realized that he was struggling with a mental disease called toxic stress. Children who are tortured at a young age completely change their brain chemistry as they grow up. David endured so much that his mind and his body were now always on high alert for danger. The worst side effect of toxic stress is that it puts a limit on the memory of children. No matter how good a child is at reading, he does not remember everything he reads, and that's what happened to David. In David's case, instead of understanding his mental condition, his teachers gave him the tag of Budu. On the one hand, David was the only black child in his class who now had to listen to taunts or scolds every day. Fearing being kicked out of school and put in a facility with social needs, David chose to cheat to pass homework and his exams. As a result, David was not expelled from school, but his studies were affected the most. Even after reaching his teens, David could not read well. Admitting defeat is not a solution. As a teenager, David struggled with school and poverty, but by his late teens, he finally had a dream: to join the United States Air Force. To fulfill his dream of becoming a military man, David began to study well, and he finally got an entry for Air Force training after a lot of hard work. The journey ahead would be 10 times more difficult. David wanted to be an Air Force pararescue. These are special soldiers whose job is to parachute during war and rescue injured pilots. To fulfill his dream, David had to finish his training, for which he had to go through his toughest exam, swimming. Due to poverty, his mother never had enough money to send her son to swimming class. Even David had seen something like a swimming pool after the age of 12. Apparently, David's swimming ability was very low for such a tough military training. As the swimming challenges became more difficult, David's fear grew. In the end, David decided to leave the training because he could not cope with so much fear. Apart from this, symptoms of cell anemia were found in his routine medical test. Just what was then, David also found a good excuse to exclude himself from military training. When David was leaving training, his inner voice was telling him not to do it, but her fear had finally forced her to leave. By 1994, 24-year-old David's dream of working for the military had disappeared, and he now worked every night for a deworming company to keep his employment. In order to conceal the pain of his failure, David thought it appropriate to resort to food. Every morning, on his way home from work, he would buy himself a box of donuts and chocolate milkshakes, and when he got home, he would start his day's breakfast with 6 eggs, 10 bacon, 8 cinnamon rolls and sugar-infused conflict. David's weight had increased to 300 pounds. In a way, David had made food a medium. Running away from the truth of the world, he knew he wasn't much of a writer. There is no special quality in it, and its future is also slowly sinking into darkness. Failure's pain is not easy to bear, and David chose the path to reduce his pain. A lot of people are taking that route these days. According to the World Health Organization, most depression patients start eating too much to keep themselves away from the world, or eating too little. This thing is also called Ben's, eating in the form of mental illness. You will be surprised to know, but Ben's eating disorder is the most common among people in India. Many solutions to get rid of this disorder will be found in today's time. One of these is motivation, which David got during the same age. If hard work is your weapon, success will be your slave. Motivation is the first thing that is needed for a good start in life. David also found his motivation one such morning while watching TV, while eating his big breakfast. David saw that the TV was showing a documentary of the training of Navy SEALs. The SEALs are considered to be the most top-level fighting force in the world, and their training is considered to be one of the toughest in the world. Only the best are chosen for the SEALs. Watching the SEALs battle mud, dust, sweat and sweat in the documentary gave David a sample of their mental toughness and desire to keep fighting. While watching the documentary, David suddenly had a strong desire to be part of the SEALs. The desire was so strong that by the following week, David had called every Navy recruiting office in the United States and reached out to enlist in SEAL training. Finally, after weeks of hard work, he discovered a training program that had been opened for former military recruits to rejoin the Navy. David was told that he could enter the SEAL program with the help of this training. After this information, David now faced 2 most difficult challenges. Firstly, the entry into training would be over within 3 months, and secondly, David's weight was much higher than the Navy's requirement. It takes only 191 pounds to enlist in the Navy. But David's weight was about 300 pounds. This simply meant that David had less than 3 months. To lose more than 100 pounds and to fulfill the dream of becoming a SEAL, David now took it as a challenge. Create a body-exhausting fitness routine for the next 3 months. He got up at 4 o'clock every morning, ride a bike for 2 hours after waking up. Soon after, he went to his nearby pool and swam for 2 hours. After this, it was the turn of the gym, where he would go and do intense workouts and apply at least 200 reps. Even after coming back from the gym, he again started cycling for a few hours, and after dinner, he again did body-breaking cycling for 2 hours. Due to such a strict routine, David lost 25 pounds in 2 weeks. Pleased with his progress, he added a 4-mile run to his routine within a month. By the time the recruitment deadline approached, David was physically fit. Even after being recruited, he had to undergo intense training, in which he had to train without sleep for 5 consecutive days. The training was so difficult that David was soaked in water and sand until the end of the day. But despite such a tough training, David graduated from this training and fulfilled his dream of becoming a Navy SEAL. If you want to move forward in life, don't be afraid of challenges. David fulfilled his dream of becoming a Navy SEAL, but after a few years of working, he realized that he needed more adventure in life. He didn't want to be confined to one place. He wanted challenges in his life that could challenge his physical abilities again. He got the news of one such challenge in 2005, which was long-distance running, that is also not such running, ultra running. David also started participating in such races so that he could help the families of the military brothers who were martyred in his Navy SEAL. With that money, he wanted to help some money to the families of the soldiers martyred in the operation in Afghanistan. He thought that, with the help of this race, he would also be able to collect charity and fulfill his dream of challenge. The race in which David had intended to take part. His name is Badwater 135. This 135-mile race passes through the most difficult climbing routes and hot places of the world. The race begins in California's Death Valley, a little below sea level, and ends on trails at an altitude of 8,374 feet. Despite so much torture, this race is held every year in the month of July. When the earth is bursting with heat, it takes 48 hours from top-to-top competitors to finish this race. David had to run a 100-mile race before participating in Badwater 35. David did not take any special training for this 100-mile race. The training during his Navy days had done wonders for him. David crossed the race at once without difficulty at Organize in San Diego. Although David's condition deteriorated in finishing the 100-mile race, he eventually finished the entire race in 19 hours. After finishing this race, David was selected to participate in the race of Badwater in 2006. But before taking part in this race, David again practiced very hard. He not only understood the entire route well, but he did his training again and again in the same scorching heat and sun. Finally, the race clock struck and David completed the race in 30 hours. He also secured 5th position. David Goggins is not the only person who has given up everything he had for new difficulties. India's famous Olympic runner, who the country knows as the Flying Sikh, Milkha Singh Ji, had also participated in many international races by putting everything at stake. He even won all these races and kept India's prestige at the international level high for many years. There is only one solution to every problem in the world: hard work. People are often curious to know from David the secret of his success. This is because David is the only African-American man in the United States who has also worked for the SEAL and has been an ultra runner in his life. David answers this question in just one word: work ethic. According to David, today's society wants to get everything very quickly. But according to David, if someone wants to make their own identity or recognize their potential, there is no easy way. Only hard work can take you to your dreams, no matter how much talent you have. If you don't have the zeal to work, you are like a bird without wings. According to author David, the real secret of his success is to wake up early in the morning. David wakes up at 4 a.m. every morning. After that, go for a 6 to 10 mile run. At 5 o'clock in the morning, they return home, take a bath, eat their breakfast, and ride their bicycles 25 miles to work. Not only this, the time they get in the lunch break during work, they either do the gym or go out to run 6 miles in the middle of the neighborhood. After work, they return home on their bikes. And then another 50 miles. If any human being has to develop such a strong personality, he has to wake up early. David has also made a 40% rule, according to which when a person exhausts 40% of his body's energy, his mind starts advising him to quit immediately. This is because the brain does not want your body to feel as much pain and difficulties as possible. But it is up to us that we do not listen to the brain and understand that our body is still in the condition to work as much as 60%. To prove the negative things of our brain wrong, we have to go through challenges so that we can give our best again and again. At this juncture, this summary ends here. I hope you liked this summary very much. How was your experience? Which point touched you the most? At what point do you work the most? Be sure to write in the comments section and the next book summary you want to hear, and you can give us that too. See you soon again with another new book summary. Until then, take better care of yourself.